What's going on, y'all? Machiavelli Mills TV. So a couple of days ago, one of my subscribers asked me to talk about how segregated the city of Chicago is, right? I appreciate everybody, all the support that I've been getting. It means a lot to me and my family, for real, for real. I appreciate it tenfold. Like, I never would have thought my channel, well, I hoped it would have, but to see my channel continue to grow, it means a lot to me. I talk crazy, talk mess on here, man, but I appreciate each and every one of y'all that always come back and always come and rock with the channel. It means a lot. So one of my subscribers, yeah, they asked me to talk about how segregated the city of Chicago is and my experiences with it. And y'all make me rehash a lot of my childhood memories. So I've said this on the channel a few times, man. Chicago is probably one of the most segregated cities in the United States of America, if not the most. When I speak about my experiences, when I'm talking about my friends, all of those individuals are black. I didn't grow up with other races, other ethnicities. I'm sorry, I did not grow up with other ethnicities. I only grew up with black folks. And that's how it really is in Chicago. Black people live amongst black people. Hispanics live amongst Hispanics. White people live amongst white people. Asians live amongst Asians. And you can see it, like, even when you ride the trains, not even being funny, when you're on a red line, watch how many Asian people get off in Chinatown. Nearly all of them get off there. You know what I'm saying? And if anybody is white that's on the red line, they won't be on the red line after 35th. After the White Sox Stadium, they are not on the red line. Black people are on. From 47 all the way to 95th Street, we are the primary individuals on the red line after that point. Seeing a white person ride the red line all the way to 95th is shocking to us. You know what I mean? Because white people don't live, they don't live amongst us for real. And if they are living on the side, let me say this, Chicago, the South and West sides, black people make up those, like predominantly black people make up the South and West sides of Chicago for real. You know what I mean? Like, and then you got, of course, Hispanics in the mix of those as well. But again, they stay in their own communities, really. When you go like on 90th and Commercial, Southeast Chicago, like that area over there is Hispanic grocery stores, Hispanic everything, restaurants, all of that. You know, and again, is predominantly Hispanics over there. In the communities that I grew up in, I grew up all throughout the west side. I grew up all throughout the south side of Chicago. I lived in Inglewood, Washington Heights, Chatham. I lived in Bronzeville, all of these different areas. And I tell people this because, you know, anybody that's from Chicago, I done lived on 65th and Low. I done lived on 65th and Minerva, 48th in Indiana, 87th Street, 832 East 87th Street, right off Cottage Grove. I done lived on 88th Street, right off Langley, 88th and Langley. I done lived on 86 in Euclid. I done lived on 107 in Church. I done lived on 104th in Morgan, right off 104th in Morgan over there. I done lived everywhere, all these different areas. And so in these areas, there were no white people in them areas for real. I mean, not Hispanics, it was just black people in them areas, you know? And so I talk about like my interactions with, matter of fact, the only white man I really was consistently interacting with growing up was my best friend's grandfather, right? His grandfather, Mr. Brown, my homie Shooter Man, his grandfather was a white man. That was the only white man I was interacting with consistently growing up, outside of like teachers, you know what I mean? Other than that, yeah, in the community, Mr. Brown was the only white man living in the hood that we knew, you know, and it's because, you know, he married a black woman, and he was a white man from California and moved to Chicago, you know, in his youth. Met a black woman, married her, and they lived on the south side, in right off 95th Street on Ada, you know, in the hood. And everybody was used to him. It was all cool. But if we ever saw like other white folks just walking through the neighborhood, we would be like, what's going on? It would be shocking to us because oftentimes they don't come where we live. I speak about, when I talk about, you know, me going to school, I didn't have white friends growing up. when I went to school, like first of all, I'll tell you my environment. When I went to the corner store, it was black folks. When I went to the basketball court, it was black people. My high school, my elementary school, Tonnage Language Academy, when I first got in there, it was some white kids in there. But then by the time I got to third grade, it was like, I'm talking about, I didn't even see any Hispanics in there like that. It was some Hispanics and white kids in there at first. It was a magnet school, but it was in the hood. Tonnage Language Academy is on 93rd and Princeton, right by 95th and the Dan Ryan. But we were learning Russian, French. You had Spanish in there. We were learning how to type without looking down. Excellent curriculum, right? But by the time I got to third grade, the non-black people that were in there, they had dispersed. And yeah, so when I went to high school, Morgan Park, great curriculum. Again, I'm talking about the white people that was in there, they were scarce. I used to make a joke and say, any young white dude, I said, most of the time, the white kids that came to Morgan Park, they started out at like Brother Rice or something. And then they got in trouble at Brother Rice. And so their parents let them go to Morgan Park. It was kind of like an alternative school for the white kids, you know. But you had some white kids that were just in there, but it was only like, I'm talking about a handful, like maybe 2 hands full. It was really no real white kids in there. Hispanics the same way, you know. So yeah, you just show you how divided or how segregated the communities are for real. Like majority of us in Morgan Park, we didn't start really interacting with white kids and real like Hispanic kids and definitely not Asian. We didn't start interacting with them until some of us went to college. Now me, I went to a historically black college at HBCU, Mississippi Valley State University. So even then, it's predominantly black folks, and the non-black people who were at my HBCU were on sports teams like the soccer team, baseball, and you know track and what else? Softball, stuff like volleyball, stuff like that, you know. But when I went to Arkansas State University, that was really my first time interacting with kids who were not black for real. Like I interacted with, it was black kids. I rocked with the black kids too, but that was my first time really interacting with non-black kids on a consistent basis. You know, because Chicago was just different. You got people in Chicago who've been living here all their life, who've never been to, like, you know, a lot of white folks live on the north side. You got people in Chicago never really been up north. You got people in Chicago who have never traveled to areas of the city where white folks would normally live. Ain't never been to Rogers Park area, none of that. Black folks where I come from in Chicago, nah. And when the white people that do live on the south side, they live in like certain tucks in certain areas of the city. Like they'll be in Beverly. You'll see them in other pockets, but not all throughout the neighborhoods. But you know, they'll be in Beverly and stuff like that too, but it's black folks in Beverly too. You know what I mean? But Beverly is a more affluent area for sure. But yeah, it was just how we grew up. And I laugh now because I remember our interaction with like non-black people being so limited that I remember my little sister, she was probably like 7 at the time. And we were watching some movie. And in the movie, it was white folks in the movie. And the white dude, he cursed. And my little sister looks at my mama and say, "Mama, white people curse?" Because she had never, again, we didn't grow up around them. So to her, her only representation of white folks was on TV. Man, like national TV. And the national TV on TV, she didn't see them. The stuff she watched, the very small things she watched, she didn't see them cursing and stuff. So she had this mindset that they didn't curse and all this other stuff. You know what I mean? Which my mama had to correct her. No. White people do everything we do. You know what I'm saying? Too. It's not, you know what I mean? Don't. But in her mind, see how program and TV do? She only saw white people being wholesome on TV, so she didn't think they did any of these things. But I said it to say, that shows how limited our interactions were with him. Yeah, and when a lot of black folks that come from my areas, again, they don't really interact with non-black people until they get to college. Or if you go to HBCU like me, really until they get to corporate America, if they don't go and get their master's degree, or if they get their master's degree from an HBCU too. But yeah, some of them don't interact. Some black people like that come from the area I come from don't interact with non-black people like that on a consistent basis until they get into corporate America, until they start working. But yeah, that's how it was for us. But you know, luckily I had a mom. Even though I wasn't growing up around non-black people consistently, my mom, you know, she took us to like the museum. You know what I mean? She took us to a lot of different places. My mama used to work for United Airlines, so we used to fly for free. She wasn't making a lot of money at all working for them. You know what I mean? But we would fly. We had them flight benefits, so we would go places and stuff like that. But yeah, man, Chicago is it's kind of funny. Like if you notice, the project housings in Chicago, none of them were built in white areas. They were all built in black neighborhoods. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, you got people who, like just how I said, it's a lot of black folks that have never been to like predominantly white areas. They never been really up north like that. They never been to areas like Rogers Park and all of that. You got white folks that have never been to none of the black neighborhoods I'm naming. Like, bro, they ain't never been to Bronzeville. They ain't never been to Washington Heights. They ain't never been to Inglewood at all. That's where Derrick Rose come from. Derrick Rose, Anthony Davis, Inglewood babies. Speaking of Inglewood babies, man, Inglewood babies, people that been in Inglewood for real all their life, and that's where they at. My homie Tay, he's from Inglewood. He went to Morgan Park High School with me. He ran cross country in high school, right? And so his coach, Mr. Berba, he was an Asian man. Mr. Berba was, you know, it was getting late. He wanted to drop some of, you know, the kids he coached off home. He knew Tay had to take a bus, a train, and another bus to get home. So he said, okay, Tay, I'll take you home. You know, my homie Levante. He like, I'll take you home, Levante. Man, he started riding through the neighborhood where Levante lived, and he starts to get a little worried. He like, yo, what is this? What's going on? Because he heard about Inglewood, but he had never been to this area before. So he's starting to see it look a little rough, and he like, what? Where are we? And he say, oh, Mr. Berber, you ain't know, you in Inglewood. He said, Mr. Berber slammed on the brake so fast. Say, where are we? He said, Inglewood. Mr. Berber say, hey, when Mr. Berber dropped him off, he said when he got to the door and the door opened, he tried to turn around and tell Mr. Berber bye. Mr. Berber was speeding off, getting the hell up out of there. You know what I mean? But that's just how, you know, yeah, you got people who have never went to Inglewood and will never go, or any of the places that I told y'all where I live. They will never step foot in those areas, which is quite funny because people be expecting black folks to be in these areas where we live and be like, you know, they expect us, they be like, y'all live over there. We ain't coming over there. But anyway, yeah, like I said, when I went to the Bud Billiken Parade, which is the largest black parade in the United States of America, yeah, it's black folks all through there, you know, and so when people ask me, when I tell people about how I never really had the desire to really, like, I never had what's the word I'm looking for? I never had an affinity for like foreign women like that. Now I found non-black women who are attractive. I've found some non-black women attractive, 100%. I'm never going to deny that. There are some beautiful non-black women, and I will never deny that. But I always say, I think what cultivated my love for black women really, it was natural for me. That's what I was around 24/7. Even in college, from elementary school, so from pre-K, from pre-K to college to my undergrad years, I was around black women 24/7. You know what I'm saying? So that is what I was naturally drawn to black women, because that's what I was raised around. And you know, those are the women who, you know, loved me and showed me a lot of support, etc. You know, so I naturally, a lot of people, you love what you grew up around. You know, when I speak about Like I said, we not, even though we have a lot of different ethnicities here, a ton. It's a diverse city, but even with it being diverse, we all live amongst each other. You got Polish people, they got Polish communities, Irish communities, you got Arab communities, all of that. Like up north, you got communities where Arabs live predominantly, stuff like that. So that is that's how I was growing up. Like when I think about people talking about New York, I've never even been to New York, but the way people describe it, they all grow up. A lot of them grow up amongst each other. They're like, yo, we went to school with the Dominican kids. We went to school with the Puerto Ricans. We went to school with the Mexicans, or we went to school with what else? All other ethnicities, that New York have. They went to school with all the different ethnicities. We didn't. Even I find it the same way in like places like Los Angeles. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of black people live with Hispanics. They live with Pacific Islanders, etc. They grew up with them, which is why, you see them like my boy, one of my homeboys, man, born and raised in LA. He always had a thing for Hispanic women. And again, I've found some Hispanic women beautiful as well, but that was his thing. And that's because he grew up amongst them. You know what I'm saying? That was what he saw growing up. That's what he had experience dating, etc. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Chicago just was not like that. It was not like that. Yeah, man, I got a lot of, when I think about it, it's a lot of stories that were like, funny. I remember when I first found out my boy's grandfather was white. I was shocked. my best friend, I couldn't believe he was white, just because that was not common where I came from. California, you see a lot of like, I'm assuming in California there were a lot of interracial, especially when I see it now. You got a lot of black and Asian kids and stuff like that in California and stuff like that. We didn't see that in Chicago for real. So for me to see a black person with a white grandfather, my homie, I was like, whoa. That would be and I would react the same way if I saw a black person. My black friend had an Asian grandfather, grandmother. It was just stuff that you didn't see. And yeah, it's a lot of the segregation in Chicago is by design. Keeping black people in predominantly in poor areas, poor and disenfranchised areas where we don't have access to a lot of things, a lot of grocery stores, etc. We got a lot of dilapidated, you can see some, well, I can't complain. I mean, I can. Yes, I can. When I see the conditions of the housing projects that my people, when I say my people, I'm talking about my actual biological people. My mom and them, my whole maternal side of my whole maternal family come from the Robert Taylor projects. And when I go in there and I see the conditions that my people was living in, you like, yo, this was by design, 100%, 100%. But then I think about like dilapidated buildings. I think about like when I went to Mississippi for college, and when I saw how black folks were living in like shotgun type houses in Mississippi, houses you never thought people would be living in Mississippi. That was like an eye opener for me, because even though like I remember my boy Derek came to visit Chicago, he thought Chicago would look like the slums based upon the violence that he heard in the city. But the infrastructure would still look more, it was looking modern, especially on the outside with these brick houses and all of that, because it's the third largest city in America. You know what I mean? But it's just, a lot of the conditions that people was living in, even in these decent looking houses, it was just rough. People didn't have no heat, no hot water. Some people was out of electricity, all that type of stuff. But yeah, man, I think about it, yeah, all the housing projects was none of them was in white areas. And even with me talking about being on the train, it's so funny, man, because I used to tell, because my son's mother, she's not from Chicago, she's from Mississippi, and I just remember being on the train and they'd be telling her like, yeah, look how many people finna get off the train at a certain stop. And I'm talking about non-black people. I knew that white people was really gonna get off the train before we got to 30. By the time we got to 35th Street, that's as far as they gonna go on that red line. A lot of the Asian people, majority of them was going to get off at Chinatown because this is how it is. It wasn't me. It wasn't stereotyping for real. I just knew what I knew because this is how the city just was set up and segregated. So, yeah, man, it's very, very interesting. But yeah, I did a lot of talking and babbling. But I like when y'all ask me like about my upbringing and stuff like that, and you know how I grew up and the environments I grew up in. I probably was really redundant, saying a lot of stuff over and over, and I apologize for that. But I just wanted to just kind of reiterate the segregation of the city.